Mahatma Gandhi, the man who inspired an entire nation toward independence through non-violent resistance. But did you know that Mahatma Gandhi was not even his birth name? That's right. His birth name was actually, which he later changed to Mahatma Gandhi, after being inspired by the teachings of the ancient Hindu sages. We're going to take a deep dive into his fascinating biographer. M.K. Gandhi was born in Porbandar, India, on October 2, 1869. He was the youngest of 4 brothers, and while he didn't have any sisters, he sure had a whole squad of honorary sisters. This is because M.K. Gandhi was raised with one particular belief, that all humans are equal regardless of their gender or social standing. He was also a teetotaler from a very young age, an animal rights activist long before it was trendy. He even gave up eating meat shortly after marrying Kasturba Gandhi in 1883 at the age of 14, and together they would go on to have 4 sons. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that one either. Gandhi's father was the chief minister of Porbandar, which meant that his family was well respected in the community. But despite this, young Mohandas wasn't exactly top of the class when it came to academics. We don't know much about his early education, but what we do know is that he was tutored at home for several years before his father arranged for him to attend a missionary school run by European Christians. Even though this went against Gandhi's own religious beliefs, he still excelled at the school and graduated with honors. After this, he went on to study law at the University of London, and became one of the first Indians to earn a degree from an English university. After earning his degree, Gandhi returned to India, where he began practicing law and quickly built up a reputation as a fierce advocate for justice and equality. However, he soon realized that the only way to truly fight for justice in India was to move to South Africa. Why, you ask? Well, because the British had recently passed a series of laws that were designed to keep Indians from owning land, voting, or even traveling freely throughout the country. But instead of sitting back and accepting the status quo, Gandhi decided to do something about it. In 1893, he co-founded the Natal Indian Congress, which aimed to secure the rights of Indians living in South Africa. Initially, the organization focused on peaceful protests, but after suffering repeated setbacks, Gandhi began advocating for more radical forms of resistance. And guess what? It worked. The movement gained momentum and support and eventually led to the repeal of many of the discriminatory laws. Wow! But our story doesn't end there, because in 1914, Gandhi returned to India, where he took on an even bigger cause, India's independence from British rule. Okay, rewind a little bit. While Gandhi had been fighting for the rights of Indians in South Africa, the seeds of Indian nationalism were already being sown. Leaders like Dadbhai Narogi and Gopal Krishna Gokal were calling for greater self-governance and an end to British exploitation of India's resources. However, these early independence movements were largely confined to the upper classes and lacked a broad popular base. When Gandhi returned to India in 1915, he recognized this and set about changing it. He called for a mass movement that would unite Indians from all walks of life in the struggle for freedom. And so the Indian National Congress, which had previously been dominated by wealthy elites, was transformed into a mass political party. With Gandhi at the helm, it became the most prominent advocate for Indian independence. But how did Gandhi manage to unite such a diverse population and inspire them to fight for independence? Well, let's find out. In order to effectively lead a mass movement for independence, Gandhi knew he needed to reach out to the vast majority of Indians who lived in rural areas and were employed in agriculture. So he traveled extensively throughout the countryside, meeting with farmers, merchants and laborers and listening to their grievances. He learned firsthand about the harsh conditions they faced under British rule, including high taxes, limited access to education and healthcare, and brutal suppression of any dissent. With this knowledge in hand, Gandhi developed a strategy for non-violent resistance that would resonate with ordinary Indians. One of the most effective tools he employed was the salt tax protest in 1930. This was a direct challenge to the British government's monopoly on the sale of salt, which had been in place since 1858. By making their own salt, Indians could effectively boycott the British salt industry and undermine its profitability. But this wasn't just about economics. It was also a symbolic act of defiance against a government that had been trying to crush Indian culture and identity. The Salt March that followed, Gandhi's call for a boycott, was one of the largest acts of civil disobedience in history, involving over 60,000 people, who walked over 240 miles to the sea to make their own salt. Of course, the British authorities weren't exactly thrilled about this development, and responded with a violent crackdown. Thousands of protesters were arrested, including Gandhi himself, but it didn't stop them from continuing the fight. Another reason why Gandhi was so effective was because he understood the power of symbolism. For example, when he wore the simple homespun cloth, known as he was making a statement about his commitment to the poor and his rejection of the British Empire's lavish lifestyles. Similarly, when he lived simply and ate plain food, he showed that he was not motivated by personal gain, but by a desire for a better future for all Indians. But perhaps most importantly, Gandhi was able to tap into a deep well of religious plurality in India. Unlike many other parts of the world, where religious differences often lead to conflict and division, India has traditionally been a land where different faiths have coexisted relatively peacefully. This religious tolerance can be traced back thousands of years to ancient texts like the Rig Veda, which contain hymns praising various deities. Over the centuries, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and other religions have flourished in India, each contributing to the country's rich cultural tapestry. During the Islamic Golden Age in India, Muslim rulers like Akbar the Great promoted religious harmony and appointed non-Muslims to positions of power. Similarly, when Sikhism emerged in the 15th century, its founder Guru Nanak emphasized the importance of equality and service to humanity, regardless of one's religious beliefs. This long tradition of religious tolerance created a fertile ground for Gandhi's message of nonviolent resistance. However, unfortunately, this religious harmony was not always maintained, and sometimes communal tensions boiled over into violence, as it did in 1946, when large-scale riots broke out between Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs. These events, known as the Great Calcutta Killings, left an estimated 2,000 dead and tens of thousands displaced. But despite the tragic loss of life and property, the religious violence in India has never been as widespread or systematic as it has been in other parts of the world. So now you know why Gandhi's message of religious tolerance and non-violent resistance was so powerful in India. As we come to the end of this video, we want you to reflect on the lessons we've learned from Mahatma Gandhi's remarkable life. How did he overcome seemingly insurmountable odds and become one of the most influential leaders of the 20th century? What can we learn from his commitment to justice, equality, and non-violent resistance? If you've enjoyed learning about this extraordinary man, we encourage you to explore more of our content. We have plenty of videos on other great leaders and historical figures, as well as current events and social issues. If you liked this video, please give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends. We appreciate your support and hope that you continue to learn and grow with us. Thank you for watching.